The LGBTQ community has become known for its inclusivity and acceptance for anyone who seeks it. And while I definitely believe that that is true, today I want to talk more about the critiques I have of the community as a gay man. So while I do believe the gay community has some toxic traits that definitely need to be talked about more, I would like to say that I also feel as though any community that has been marginalized and discriminated against throughout its history ends up having so much built up trauma that toxic behavior and that mentality can become normalized, accepted, and even perpetuated. I think this results from a subconscious attempt at adapting and accepting unfair and disadvantaged aspects of your life by incorporating them into your sense of identity and almost reclaiming them to feel like you regain the sense of lost control in your life. Feelings of shame, loneliness, and rejection can be internalized and projected through forms of hypersexuality, defensive and mean girl like attitude or behavior, or even excessive use of humor as a way to cope with certain harmful realities of your life and your situation. That being said, I would also like to say before continuing that the content in this video is meant to be strictly constructive with the criticism because I have seen other videos that kind of went to the same topic made by other gay people, and I feel like a lot of it was a projection of their internalized dissatisfaction and frustration. And no hate to them because, like I said earlier, when you're living this certain reality where you're discriminated against and you're a minority, it makes sense. I want to speak in more of a logical, unbiased, informative way. A lot of my commentary is also not meant to bash or blame the community for these things. And I think this is really important because it's also like a logical human response to living with discrimination and marginalization. So that's another really big key thing that I was kind of speaking about earlier. I feel like certain people that are angry almost kind of move to the mindset of blaming people in the community instead of coming from a place of compassion and understanding. And that's more of what I want to go for. The first subject I wanted to talk about is the hypersexualization of the community. And it's no secret that sex is extremely casual within the gay community. And I mean, even my friends that I've met from the community were pretty surprised because I didn't have a casual attitude towards sex, and I had standards that weren't just limited to how somebody looked. I didn't just have sex with somebody because they looked good, regardless of what type of relationship I had with them in my life. Like, I wouldn't even say I'm prudish or have, crazy standards in like what type of character they had, what type of personality they had, how long had I known them, had we gone on certain dates, just things like that. And I mean, even going on Grinder, which to be honest, it is kind of understandable, but I would get a lot of backlash and hate for saying that I wasn't trying to hook up with people I wanted to date. And I know it's a hookup app, but at the same time, it's like, where else are we going to meet people besides a bar, which is also heavily, based around sex and partying. So also, while I do believe the destigmatization of sex in general is a very good and positive thing that we should all celebrate, I think that there is a very fine line between that and hypersexualization. I feel like there are several reasons why this is so common in the gay community. First, I feel like hypersexualization is an actual trauma response, and trauma does go hand in hand with living as a minority.
It's that you are hypersexual. Now, there's a lot of reasons why we can be hypersexual in life. A lot of times, people with trauma either turn hypersexual or they are disgusted by sex.
So, sexuality can become almost like a virtue and a way to escape from certain harsh realities in your life. And you also don't have to be gay to know this. It's well known that being over sexual or even possibly becoming addicted to sex is a real life thing. I also feel like being gay forces you to miss out on a lot of things that straight people take for granted. So, for example, like the natural development of dating as a teen and being able to experiment and be with many different people to figure out what type of personality you like, what type of person you really want to be with, or even just having a crush and being able to possibly get with them when you're gay, it's very, very rare that the person you like is even of the same sexuality as you. These are things that straight people really don't understand, that like gay people can't just go out, or it's very rare to go out and meet somebody, end up liking them, and then have them like you back, or even have a chance to even be with them. It's very rare because obviously being gay is a minority. So I feel like this can end up breeding a sort of depravity, because your natural relationship and sexual needs from a very early age are not being met. I look at this combination of factors that help form and perpetuate this type of behavior. I also feel that discrimination from the heteronormative community calling us deprived has caused this kind of discourse to have almost like a taboo side to it, because people will paint it as homophobic or self hating when there are just some things that are objectively true and need to be discussed. This has also caused gay men and especially twinks to cling to their youthfulness and how young they look, because of this constant reinforcement that how fuckable you are is what's most important. So you revolve your entire like perception of yourself, your self-esteem, your personality around literally how easily you can be objectified and how many people want to fuck you. I think to point this out, that this is obviously not healthy and not something that's good, is not homophobic at all. It's just common sense and logical. And I think it's pretty dystopian to find that some people don't want to have this conversation. And it honestly is really sad. I am blessed that I am not that way, but when I was younger, I was that way. And I have been around other people who are like that. And it's just very depressing and sad, because there really isn't a conversation around how messed up that is. Because when that's the only community you have and that's what's constantly reinforced, like partying, being sexy, and going out, I mean, can you blame people for ending up that way? I have even heard people say that it's just how gay people are. Like, gay people are just very open about their sexuality. And I think that, in my opinion, to say that being overtly sexual is intrinsic to being a gay man or the gay experience, as opposed to a symptom that comes from discrimination and repression, is in itself homophobic. If straight people were forced into the same conditions that we are and grow up living the same way we do and have to consistently repress their sexuality, I believe they would be acting in the same hypersexual way that we do. One of the most harmful aspects of the community that I really staunchly speak out about, and I've even gotten backlash from other gay people about, is the whole daddy twink or older younger dating dynamic. That's honestly, it's like the default in the community. And I really don't think this has to be really explained deeply to understand why this is wrong. But I feel like the normalization of this type of relationship has caused so many people to get taken advantage of and become victims of sexual assault and abuse. But because it's so normalized, they themselves might not even know that they have been victims. The rise of hookup apps like Grindr, in combination with the depravity that I talked about earlier with relationships, has caused this to become so much more common than it otherwise would have been. I mean, even when I was 16 and I went back to the Keys where I'm from to visit my family, and I got to hang out with my gay cousins who were in their 30s and married at the time, and I would tell them about experiences that I had with older men, being underage, and at the time I didn't see it as abuse or anything. Looking back, I really expected them to, tell me that that was wrong. And instead, they doubled down and told me about other experiences that they themselves have had and how it's normal to them too. And I just feel like this whole mindset and this whole sort of dynamic is just breeding so much preventable sexual abuse victims. It's just such an unhealthy dynamic that we have, that I just feel like it's so important and it really needs to be discussed. And it honestly is scary how common that this is. And what's even scarier is half the people you talk to won't even believe that they have been victims. Next, I wanted to move to something that I like to call the Regina George complex. Now, I actually don't believe that this type of behavior is specific to the gay community, more common in communities that have also been marginalized and discriminated against, and it forms as a way to cope with consistent prejudice. Many gays growing up, and especially feminine gays, get harassed and bullied so much during their early years that they then develop this defensive, mean girl like attitude, that is also sometimes even encouraged by the community itself. When you consistently face negative reactions from the people around you for just being who you are and for things that you cannot control, you begin to accept it and even expect it, which then creates this get them before they get me attitude, where you then project your own insecurities onto other gays and even begin to take joy in bullying each other. And it can even lead to a point where you use the same insults that other straight people have even used against you. And I feel like this is a response to so much discrimination that you almost reclaim in a way, and you turn around and do it to others and even enjoy it, and it becomes almost like a game. And I feel like it becomes so normal because this is what you're used to. And I also feel like sometimes I feel like people will take the persona of the oppressor because it may help them feel like they're regaining lost control in their life. It helps to distance themselves from the mindset that I am a victim, when in reality, if the goal is to grow and heal from trauma or hard times, first you have to accept there's an issue. So you have to accept that you are a victim or that you were a victim at some point in order to move on. So this whole mindset is very obviously toxic, but again, like I was saying earlier, it is understandable when you look at the relative context of the environmental pressures that push people to develop and act this way. And all we can really do is, like I said, not blame people, but just have more common and rigorous discussions about this to help limit it and make it not happen as much. And while I said in the beginning that I believe the community is very accepting, sometimes I have noticed that this is not always the case. On one end of the spectrum, we have feminine gay men that can be seen as undesirable and bullied, and we have the mask for mask persona on various like dating apps or Grinder, can make them feel very alienated and hated in their own only community. And then on the other end, we have mask or masculine presenting gay men, although way less common, that are sometimes told that they're not living their authentic truth, or that they're not really being who they really are and they're putting on a front. And the way I view this is, it's like, if that, even if that is true, like I thought we all agreed that code switching is a natural response to discriminatory and dangerous situations. So at the end of the day, like, we're misplacing blame. We're just fighting amongst each other and hating on each other when we shouldn't be putting the blame on ourselves because nobody chose to be put in these certain situations. It's counterintuitive to the goal of the community of being, inclusive and diverse and making people feel accepted and normal. What does this do other than to reinforce that being gay is almost like a specific genetic personality mold that you have to fit, that, homophobic people have been saying that, if you like this certain thing or if you act this certain way, then you're gay. So does that make, us any better? And another theme that I wanted to talk about that I do feel isn't as heavy or serious as the previous mentioned ones is the use of humor as a trauma response. And like the whole never taking anything serious and nothing will ever hurt you like mindset. And while this can be a pretty harmless coping mechanism, I mean, we obviously, everybody loves having somebody who has good humor and who is entertaining. I think sometimes it can become almost like a runaway trait, and it's something that will inevitably end up hurting you. For example, if you never take anything serious and you're just always joking, eventually the people you surround yourself with and the people around you won't take you serious, and that can end up getting very annoying and bad pretty fast. The line between what should be joked about and what shouldn't be kind of starts to blur as it becomes such a intrinsic part of your personality that you don't know when to stop joking, that the friends and people around you can start to push you away because, human beings, there's things that you need to be serious about, especially traumatic things. Like, in order to move on and heal, you need to be serious and own up to these things. And if you're always joking and brushing it off, it can, kind of rub people the wrong way. Like, we want you to be serious, we want your serious input right now, but all you can do is make jokes. So like I said, I feel like in the end, this can end up actually hurting you and the people around you. So while I do believe the community has come very far and is definitely a very good refuge for queer and disowned people that desperately need support, I think constructive discourse has somewhat become taboo because of the belief that if your criticism aligns with what a straight person or with what a homophobic person has said, then that means you must be homophobic or have some sort of self-hatred. And while it is also true that these aspects that I am speaking about the community are not their fault, but are a result of external negative circumstances such as discrimination and homophobia, I think sometimes these uncomfortable conversations really need to be had so we can grow and become better and not just blindly reject all criticism as discrimination and homophobia, because in the end we lose either way if we don't have the courage to sometimes sacrifice our ego to, lift the mirror and face the negative or toxic traits about ourselves and about the community in order for us to really be able to grow and have an even more inclusive and an even more healthy community and help to limit and even stop this toxic mindset and behavior that I keep seeing being perpetuated. But yeah, that was really all I wanted to talk about. Let me know if any of the things I talked about you can relate with. And if you enjoyed what I discussed or my video, please consider checking out my other videos. But thank you guys so much for watching.